On today's podcast,
My father's always told me you only have your name. Your name's all you have. So when I sell that name and when I tie that in with referral partners, that's all I've got.
the truth is, adding value will never go out of style. Hello, and thanks for joining us for today's podcast. I've got a great guest today, and it took us about 10, 15 minutes to actually get the podcast started because we start catching up and yapping. And anyway, Nick Nance, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you. I really appreciate you having me.
Nick actually does my homeowner's insurance. I network with about 1,000 insurance agents and 1,000 realtors, so it's hard to give away your personal business to a lot of people, but Nick's a great referral partner for iWatch Security, great networking guy. And personally, I think, honestly, if I had to boil it down, you're probably one of my top 10 couples in Raleigh. I just think you guys are both awesome.
Thank you.
Like a total power couple, and appreciate that. So welcome to the podcast, Nick.
Thanks.
And tell us a little bit about yourself for anybody who doesn't happen to know you.
So I'm a Raleigh native, born and bred. I'm one of the very few.
How'd that happen exactly? I don't understand.
Idea. I think I'm one of about 10 left in the area.
All right.
So Raleigh native, born and bred, been in Raleigh my whole life. Been in insurance, the insurance industry in one capacity or another for about the last 12 years. Been selling for the last 6 years with Farm Bureau Insurance. Married to my beautiful wife Greta. We've got 4 kids in between us, 2 labs. So we have a pretty good circus going on at home.
There you go. Never a dull moment, right?
Never a dull moment.
Always at the store.
Always yelling
for
at somebody.
Something. Quick question: what's the toughest part about being a dad?
The toughest part about being a dad to me is drawing that fine line between being a friend and having some authoritative, capacity with them and making sure that they understand that everything that you're doing for them is in their best interest.
Right. That's tough. It took tough. Me. My youngest is 21. It took me a while to get that point across.
21 years.
I think they got it. I think they got it now. Like, I'm not telling you this for me. It's I just want to help you, and it just takes them a little, especially boys, takes a little bit to get through the head. They're just a little stubborn, egos, and I guess we were both there as well. So
we were just talking about it.
Right. What's the most rewarding thing about being a dad?
Seeing my kids light up. Getting to share in things that I didn't have growing up. Mm-hmm. We do okay for ourselves, and we have a fun lifestyle, and just being able to share that with them and make sure that they understand how we work for it. Just getting to see the enjoyment out of them when they see kind of how hard we work. We work hard, but we play harder.
Sure, that's awesome. Yeah. That's awesome, and I can attest to both those for you guys.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit about you, and insurance business. What kind of geared you towards thinking about getting in the insurance business?
I've been a builder since 2003. I've had my GC license since 2003. Started in the construction industry, and when that fizzled out in 2008 and 2009, I wanted to figure out how to transition. So I bought in and got into the restoration industry, and so we started rebuilding houses for all the insurance companies when they burnt down or they flooded. And at some point when it got to the point where that was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I had talked with all of the insurance companies that we work with on a regular basis, and they had asked me to come over, and I laughed at it and said, no, not for me. I'm not a salesperson. And finally made the plunge 6 years ago, and still don't consider myself a salesperson. I'm more of an educator.
Yeah. And
never thought I would enjoy the insurance industry as much as I do, but now here I am, an insurance nerd.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And again, I think there's a lot of misconceptions about salespeople. You see the Wolf of Wall Street. Tell me about this pen, and I'm going to sell you on this pen. And I think being a good listener has a lot to do with being in sales. And I really think having empathy towards your client, and really just trying to steer them the best way you can, and knowing that, hey, if there's something that comes up, I'm gonna be there.
Right.
And I think you definitely bring that to the table. So super important. And, the other thing is you got to have insurance.
That's right.
I mean, it's a great industry. I mean, you don't have to have an alarm system.
That's right.
You should, but you don't have to. But
It's fairly economy proof.
yeah. So that being said, a lot of our audience and a lot of the people watching are certainly interested in success and failures. And we were talking before the podcast started that essentially, I try to do content and I try to create content that if I'm talking to a 21-year-old Brian Smith, what would I tell myself, and what we would give for an hour, with a younger version of ourselves, provided they listened.
Right.
So that's what we want to focus in on. And you mind sharing some of when I say failures, I'm a firm believer you win or you learn.
Right.
And so, you mind sharing any failures or things you've learned along the way, mistakes that you made, or just mindset changes that have, you felt some pain from and you learned through the pain?
Yeah, for me, it's never get too big for your britches. Mm-hmm. I remember my mom saying that since I could walk, you're getting to be too big for your britches. And I remember when I started construction, I immediately wanted to start doing it for myself. Mm-hmm. I was not of the mindset that I wanted to work for anybody. And I went out on business on myself and was very successful very quick. Mm-hmm. And then something I had no control over, the economy, took me and just flattened me to a capacity that was heartbreaking, crushing.
Sure.
Something I love so much is getting ripped away from me, and it's not my fault. I built a great product. People can't get money. Banks are overextending themselves. And in that capacity, I lived very fun. I was 21 years old, had a lot of money in the bank, lived like I was a rock star when I was just a home builder.
Right.
And it was all snatched away in a heartbeat. So that failure for me helped give me such a respect for money and how much we do want to work hard, but we want to play hard as well. I'm never going to say that I'm the person that puts every dime in the bank and is socking it away. I'm going to live. While I'm living, I'm going to have fun.
Right.
But it's given me a totally new respect. I don't feel like I blow money. I don't feel like I do things that are, ridiculously frivolous nowadays.
Mm-hmm. I think we've got a real advantage over, let's say, someone who has been out there for, let's say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
It's been relatively solid economy for a long time.
Yeah.
In the last, let's say, year, 2, 3, 4 years have been really smoking hot.
Yeah.
And we've had a good run for a long time. I was self-employed, had a business during the Great Recession, is what I call it.
Yeah.
And there's just so much that's out of control. People losing jobs and they owe you money. And, we dealt with a lot of builders, and, I've been stuck for a lot of money. And, at the end of the day, it's we know in our guts how bad it can get,
right?
With so many things beyond your control. So, you want to be aggressive, you want to grow your company, but you just know that one day things can change, hopefully that's someone calling in to get a security system.
That's right.
But one day something can change, and it levels a lot of hard work that you did, and you gotta balance being aggressive with being slightly conservative and knowing that, for lack of better terms, saving for the rainy day. You know that there's going to be ups and downs.
Right.
And the other thing is there's opportunity in those downs. Because if you had lots of cash and credit and you were in a good situation during the Great Recession, you cleaned up.
Right.
That's where you go from being worth $1 million to being worth $5 million in a real short period of time, because you're not fearful.
Right.
You're capitalizing on that downturn. So I feel your pain, and I was there with you, you know.
Good lesson.
So some successes.
Some successes is just picking myself back up.
Yeah.
Not letting that. I've had friends that let that recession, the Great Recession as you call it, just devour them.
Right.
Mindset, physically, stress. I've known friends that just lost everything and never picked it back up. I never wanted that. I've always had the dream to do good for myself and make life a lot easier than what it was the way I grew up. Mm-hmm. Had a great childhood, we just didn't have a lot. I want my kids to have something different, and I wanted to have something different. So just getting back in the game and understanding that, none of that was my fault.
Right.
That it's something I just have to learn from and fix. And although it did change the way I looked at things, it helped me out tremendously make smarter decisions.
Right.
So, successes, when I had our restoration company, we went from making somewhere around 4 or 5% profit to somewhere around 35% within 2 years, just by making small, instrumental, smart changes. So, successes for me is really just kind of picking myself up and getting back in the game and doing well for myself and adhering to the masses. I have a clientele that I'm looking for, but getting in front of more of them in Raleigh is my goal for any type of business. So
I think you bring up a good point, and it's a couple things. I think about a couple things with that. It's not how many times you get knocked down, it's how many times you get up.
That's right.
Number one. But secondly, I think a lot of people may have gone through bad times. And truly, 2006, 7, 8, right in that range. There's a lot of things beyond our control that impacted us. And it was a real negative. And a lot of people would say, well, that happened out there. It wasn't my fault.
Right.
Well, that happened, and that's why I'm where I'm at, or what happened. And there's truth to that.
Yeah.
But there's also, I can't focus on that out there because I've got no control on that. It's all that does is lead to frustration.
Yep.
I have to focus on what was I doing leading up to that?
That's
what
right.
did I do during that? Did I hang on to employees too long personally? Yeah. Because I want to take care of employees. Yeah. Did I stay aggressive when I probably could have throttled back earlier? Sure. Was I overextended? Was I, doing different things? So, I think that's where our power's at, is focusing on what we could have done differently through adversity.
That's right.
Even though a lot of it was out of our control.
Prep for if it ever happens again.
Yeah, and you know what? It's gonna happen.
That's right.
So that's the thing about I was having a conversation this weekend that the downturn is coming. It might be tomorrow, it might be next year, it might be 4 years from now.
Right.
But it's coming. It's historical. The economy does this. So if you're a realtor out there and you're just advertising, you're committing to contracts, and I'm gonna grow. I'm just going to tell you from experience, you got to be a little bit careful. It's easy to not save water when it's raining.
That's right.
And it's been raining good economy for a while. So hopefully everybody's put a little water away, so when the drought comes, you got a little something to drink. But so those are some good lessons learned. And anything else you want to add on to that, or just anything else to help out the audience?
Yeah, not really. It's been good.
Just grinding.
Just keep grinding and
Smartly.
Yeah, grind
Right.
smart and work and network with the right people.
Right. Awesome. Networking is obviously you're a real good networker and out there, building your brand. Anything you'd recommend about networking in general?
The biggest lesson I've learned in networking is being intentional. I remember when I first started networking, being introduced into the BNI scheme, and it was all about, let's go out to the masses. Let me see how many business cards I can sling out to everyone. And I've changed my whole business model around not doing that anymore. Being more intentional. Who do I want to work with? Who is out there that wants to work with me? And not just throwing a dart in the middle of, we talked about it earlier, not throwing a dart in the middle of a football field and seeing where it lands.
Right.
Making quality contacts over quantity of contacts has been imperative for my business. So that's the biggest thing I try and do. I love networking. I love the scene. I love to meet new people, but I don't need to work with all of them. And I used to think that I needed to work with all of them to be successful.
Right.
I used to think that I had to work with every realtor and every lender in Raleigh to be successful, when in fact I can find 5 to 10 really, really good ones, and it's made me 10 times more successful than when I used to try and work with 100 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a huge impact in my business.
Little bit more of a sniper
Absolutely.
than a heavy machine gun.
That's right.
And drilling down onto the people that you click with.
That's right.
That's a huge tip right there. Actually, something I've had a lot of conscious thought about. A conversation with my VP of Sales, Tom Adams, last week about this very thing. So, creating more depth in the relationships versus width of relationships.
That's right.
Because we only got so much time. You got the family, you got your actual business, your work, and then you got your social and networking, which leads us into our 5 things topic.
Okay.
And number one
thing that I think of when we talk about the 5 things, if I'm trying to teach someone to how to pick an insurance company or insurance agent, is to try and stay local. To me, that's how I try and present all of my insurance. It's let's get down to someone that if you had to have your insurance agent come out and talk to you, are they going to do that?
Right.
Every one of my clients I meet with, and when I meet with them, I ask them one question. I say, have you ever met your insurance agent before? And it's usually around 90% of them. 90% of them have never met their insurance agent.
Wow.
This is a financial product that, I want to know who's handling my money.
Right.
I want to know who's handling my 401k. Insurance can bankrupt people just the same way as losing everything.
Because if you're not covered and you thought you were,
that's
type
right.
thing.
So that's going to be my biggest, my number one topic is just buying local, finding someone that'll sit down with you and talk with you, explain coverages. A lot of times people just want the cheapest coverage they can possibly get, which is not usually the best.
Right.
My father always said, you pay for what you get. And that's probably my biggest hurdle in insurance, is getting through that mindset of, I just want the cheapest out there. There's a very fine line in quality in what we call value.
Yeah, we literally just posted one of our competitors. I won't say their name, but they're a do-it-yourself security company. It just came out how there's a $2 sensor that can defeat the alarm system.
Right.
So the savings can be expensive.
Right.
Okay, so that's good stuff. So number 2.
Absolutely. So number 2 kind of ties in with number 1 with buying local, and I feel like the relationship is so important. The relationship between you and your financial planner and you and your banker, I want to have that relationship. I talk to a lot of my clients and I say, I don't want to just be your insurance agent. I want to be your kid's insurance agent. I want to be your grandkid's insurance agent. And we see that a lot with Farm Bureau because, it's one of the oldest companies in North Carolina. Grassroots farmers. So I'm insuring a lot of those generations, and having that relationship and that personal level is something I find is very important. How else do I know exactly what's going on with what you need coverage for? Whether it be life insurance or the right car insurance, umbrella insurance. Everybody's situation is so different.
Right.
Just because we're required to have home and auto insurance does not mean that's the only thing that you need.
Right.
So the relationship to me is very, very key. It's just getting in front of people and figuring out what they need and adhering to it.
I mean, to me personally, just speaking as a consumer, having a relationship with people that I do business with, number 1, just in general, is really important to me. But number 2, especially when you're thinking about insurance, or especially life insurance, if something happens to me, I've got 2 life insurance policies with 2 different people. And I just kind of did that for networking. It's not necessarily in my best interest necessarily, but try to feed more than one networking partner. Although I don't mind having diversified companies in case one of them, is in trouble or something. But long story short is that, let's say I drive home and I get, mauled by a elephant, sits on me or something. Both my insurance guys would know that something happened to me. And they would, I just have no doubt, they would be very proactive to get involved and make sure my kids are taken care of and make sure the policies are executed. Whereas if you buy life insurance from, 1-800 internet company or something like that, they don't know anything happened to you. Your family may not know where you have that paperwork or that you even have a policy in place. So that's where, when I think about it as a consumer, like I have no doubt in my mind that people that I do business with would jump in and be very proactive to, do a good job for my kids at that point, and or my attorney who's, the has my will and all that. So that's a huge point. And I think having that great relationship is uber important when it comes to insurance in general, but certainly with insurance. So number three?
Number three for me is experience. Just like your industry and just like the real estate industry, there's 1,000 insurance agents on every street corner. Having somebody that knows what they're talking about and knows what the right type of coverage is plays a huge difference in whether a claim gets paid out or not, or if somebody has sufficient amount of coverage. The experience for me being a general contractor has helped me out a ton, knowing that we use great cost estimators and all that sort of thing to make sure that we have the right value on a house. But the experience from the general contractor side lets me be able to agree to that. I know how much it costs per square foot to build a house around here. So when a client second guesses or they say, hey, I got another quote from this company and they're saying that we need this much coverage, it's very easy for me to step in and say, well, I have this experience. This helps me, evaluate it. I feel very comfortable at this level, whether it's higher or lower. And it's a nice little comfort level. I don't want people paying for what they don't need. There's a lot of insurance companies that go off of whatever the Zillow listing is. If you're paying $300,000 for a house, we're going to put $300,000 worth of insurance. Well, that's not exactly what needs to happen. Having experience and somebody that knows what's needed by the mortgage companies and what's needed to actually cover a loss is a big deal.
Sure.
And the experience factor for me is I've seen it go both ways. I've seen it mess up some claims really badly, and I just don't want that for my client.
Yeah.
Again, there's a fine line between paying for what you get and that value, or not having the right coverage in place.
And let's be honest, it's not a huge price difference. It's not like you're going to be 3 times or even 1.5 times usually. A great story that a friend of mine, John Matthews, told me at dinner last Thursday. He said, Leonardo da Vinci's sitting there. Someone comes up and says, can you draw me something? So sure, he grabs a napkin, he draws out something, this and that, and he hands it back. And he goes, that'll be $10,000. And they're like, what? $10,000? You just, it only took you a few minutes, blah, blah, blah. He goes, no, it didn't take me a few minutes. It's taken me thousands of hours, perfecting your craft. And so, anybody can draw something for you, but, you can get someone with a lot of experience for, even if you come in at $10, $20 a month difference, what does it really matter? You know what I mean? I'm not going to be nitpicky in that area of my life. I'll cut back on Starbucks and make a K-cup. There's areas where you can, cut back, but ultimately insurance should not be one of them, So what are we on? I got the worst memory. We're on 1-4. All right.
Number 4 when picking an insurance agent or a insurance company is service. Again, all these things kind of tie together to the personalized, but having somebody that you can count on. My wife probably thinks this is one of my biggest faults, but when to turn off the light switch for me is hard. Yeah. I feel like I'm a 24-hour-a-day life insurance, auto and home insurance agent. I have clients call me on the weekends all the time. I have them call me at 10. I have them text me all the time, and I want to be there for them.
Right.
I made this promise that I'm going to protect them, and I should get a lot better at it, but I made this promise to protect them, and I want to be there for them.
Right.
I want them to have a different experience than they had at their previous insurance company, because that's what I sell. I sell me doing that. And my father's always told me, you only have your name. Your name's all you have. So when I sell that name and when I tie that in with referral partners, that's all I've got.
It's your brand.
It is my brand.
Yeah.
So, and it's everyone's brand that works with me and graces me with the referrals that they send to me. So I want to go above and beyond. So the service side is one of our biggest assets, especially for me, but also with the company. Farm Bureau is a great company. We have local offices in every county, usually multiple offices in every county. It doesn't matter if you live in that county. You can go pay your bills. You can talk with an agent. You can talk with your claims representative. Most claims representatives are out of state, out of country. speaking to you in another country. They have no interest of yours in mind at all. Get the claim done, get out of there, and
Get
be
off
done.
the phone. You know, it's an interesting thing you brought up. And I guess being on the other side of the phone with this kind of stuff, obviously I've been doing this security for 20 years. You get text messages, phone calls, emails. You get everything 24 hours a day. I've had people call me at 3 in the morning. I'll give you it's funny now. You know, it wasn't funny that night, but, you know, I have my phone set to do not disturb at 10 to eliminate this kind of stuff from waking up in the middle of the night. But someone called me at 3 in the morning, freaking out. Hey, I came downstairs and the keypad, it's black except for a little green thing in the top left-hand corner. And I go, touch it. Oh, it's working. Yeah. Yep. It took me like an hour to go back to bed. You know what I mean? It was 3 in the morning. And she was a little nervous. Her husband was out of town traveling or something like that. But again, you know, something I've learned to do is, especially with professionals, that we're all so connected now. The phones, the Facebooks, all the stuff that we're so connected. It's easy to reach out to your professional, whatever it is, you know, 19, 20 hours a day when you're thinking about it. I've actually really worked on putting it on my calendar for Monday. You know, if I think of something because I just randomly thought about it over the weekend or late at night, just really trying to respect my professionals that I deal with, respect their boundaries and their time and that sort of thing, and not being a nuisance, you know, at 10 p.m. at night or something like that, unless it's obviously an emergency. But just something I've tried to work on because, you know, you and I are probably hyper aware that getting those phone calls regularly. I've got thousands of customers that have my cell phone number, you know, and anybody can call at any time or text. But so that's a real good point that you bring up there. And I think we're on number 5.
Yeah, number 5, I put a very high importance on our company culture, and, you know, Farm Bureau is one of the biggest insurance companies in the United States, yet we only operate in 11 states. Mm-hmm. I'm with Farm Bureau for a reason. I talked with all of the big insurance companies in the area, and Farm Bureau was my fit. The way that we do business, we do that grassroots business that I'm so into. I'll sit down at your kitchen table. We'll do insurance over your hood of your pickup truck. Mm-hmm. As long as we're sitting down and meeting, you know, that's all I care about. Mm-hmm. Farm Bureau stresses, their motto is God, Family, Farm Bureau. So, you know, it's a very family-oriented company. Mm-hmm. And when doing that, when I was trying to figure out a company to work with, that kind of scared me for a second, because I'm like, there's no way such a great company can be competitive. Mm-hmm. So when you know, I researched all the companies, I price shopped everybody, I looked at customer service, and Farm Bureau fit all those bills. So picking a right company, other than just, you know, your little green lizard that really probably can't save you 15% on your auto insurance, mm-hmm. or all these catchy slogans. I love the way that Farm Bureau does business. You don't see commercials out of Farm Bureau. Mm-hmm. We put it into the customer savings. We don't care to go that huge marketing brand awareness. We want our agents to do that on their own. Mm-hmm. We want them to be the face of the company, not Farm Bureau. So that's a huge part of why I'm with Farm Bureau and why I pitch it as much as I do. Yeah. I just think it makes all the difference in the world when you can get in front of your clients and do the right thing for them instead of just trying to sell them something.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome. And thank you for sharing those 5 things, Nick. And I did want to bring up, walked into the office this morning, I had this great book sitting on my desk in a package that was mailed to me. But I won a drawing here, and it was Nick did the drawing. It's called The Referral of a Lifetime, which I love Ken Blanchard. He's got some great content. Just to wrap up, Nick, what do you think? What do you think's one thing you got from this book that you'd like to share?
Back to the basics. You know, back to the basics and cultivating relationships. You know, I don't play the numbers game. You know, when you're a client, when you're a referral partner, your family, your friend, mm-hmm. Cultivating those relationships and staying in front of people and making sure that, you know, as soon as you sell a policy that they're never going to hear from you again. staying in front of my clients and staying in front of everyone. There's a lot of that in that book. It's a great book. I recommend it for anybody that's in the sales game or anybody in general.
Okay. Well, that's awesome. Well, I can't wait to read it. I've actually heard this mentioned multiple times, so it's definitely on my to-do list to knock this out this week. So thank you, Nick, for taking the time, especially on a busy Monday. And thanks for joining us again today, and look forward to seeing you next time. Hello, this is Brian Smith, and thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more valuable content.